Today on Lightning Bugs.
My piano teacher sent me to an energy healer because I was sort of like, when I had all this creative energy that was happening, and I'm like so not into that kind of thing. But ultimately, she was this person who helps people get out of like jobs that they aren't like corporate world, so they can get into like a more creative field, and they're struggling with that. And so she sort of helps people transition. It was a coincidence that I went to her. And then it wasn't until after like these 12 sessions with her, I was like, oh my God, even though I'm an actor, which is like technically a creative field, there was still something else that I wasn't tapping into and accessing. I realized, wow, okay, you can be in what everyone thinks to be a very creative space and not really feel like you're being your most creative. And I thought that was like a huge revelation for me. I'm like, just because like people think it's cool that I'm an actor doesn't mean I'm necessarily really expressing myself.
Hi, thank you for watching my podcast. If you've been enjoying the podcast, let us know how we're doing. Go to Lightning Bugs on Apple Podcasts and leave us a review with your thoughts. Or if you have any ideas for guests, we want to hear from you. So leave us that. Leave us your suggestions on Apple Podcast reviews. Hello and welcome to my podcast, Lightning Bugs, Conversations with me, Ben Folds, about creativity. Today's guest is my friend Lindsey Kraft. As an actor, you may recognize her for her role as Allison on Gracie and Frankie. She most recently plays Will Ferrell's fiancée on Apple's The Shrink Next Door. I'm a big fan of her work on Getting On. You got to find that if you haven't seen it. Then there's Them, Why Women Kill, Veep, Modern Family, some other obscure stuff like that. The Big Bang Theory, The Connors, and Dirty John, and so on and so forth. As a writer, she's written pilots for NBC and CBS. She's written several plays, including the play Wedding Bash, which was produced off-Broadway and published by Samuel French. Most recently, she has begun workshopping a new musical called Love Me, in which she stars, sings, and has written and composed all the songs and music. Now, when I first met you, which wasn't that long ago, a few years ago, you didn't play music and write songs. So I think this part may be wrong at the end. It says, most recently, she has begun workshopping a new musical called Love Me, in which she stars, sings, and has written, composed songs and music. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. It feels crazy to even talk about because I still feel like I don't know how it sort of happened, but I guess it's sort of been inside of me my whole life, maybe, and I don't even know how to begin talking about it, to be honest.
Well, just back up a couple of years. Okay. So were you hiding from your friends that you were writing music secretly and learning piano? Or
no.
You really started. So how long ago did you take this stuff on? Because I've been doing it my whole life and I haven't gotten a musical together yet.
It's so funny that you're like, did you hide it? I'm like, no, I'm like the first one to share something. And especially when I first started, I'd be like, here, listen to this. And now thinking back that I did that, I feel really silly because I probably wouldn't do that right now. But the first time I started writing a song, my friend Sarah was over and I was like, I didn't know about piano yet. And I had gotten a guitar because I was like, that just
You didn't know about piano. You knew they existed. You just didn't.
Yeah, I knew what they looked like. And I would always just kind of stare at them. Like I'm looking at mine right now. I'm just like, oh my God, that big thing. Like it just seems so intimidating. And I'm terrible at guitar and I don't even like it. It doesn't feel right. But I just assumed that would be like my way in. And I remember playing a song for her and she's like, that's good. Yeah, and it was just terrible. And she admits it now. And she's one of, the people who's part of this project. And now she's like, and she tells people that story. I heard Lindsay's first song and it was pretty bad, And then I just started, I wrote this monologue that I felt like needed a song at the end. And I sort of wrote this song and it just felt like it was something that I had to write. I went to the piano. We had a piano. It's a long story, but I so much didn't want a piano in my apartment that I had my partner put it in storage. And he was like, can I please just put it in your apartment? I was like, absolutely not. I am not going to have that piano in my 1-bedroom apartment. And then I finally said yes.
And how long ago was this again?
This was 2 years ago, probably.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm still trying to get and I think anyone would be trying to get their head around is all these leaps.
Yes.
First of all, you've been an act. Do I say actor or actress?
Who cares? I don't
okay.
care.
So you've been a who cares for like
that's good.
Your whole adult life. Like this has been your day job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like so grateful that I've had this, like, you know, that I'm a working actor and I've been able to pay bills that way. It still feels crazy to me. But I always felt like, kind of after every job that I have, I'd feel like, oh, there's something else. Like I don't feel like I'm expressing myself in a way that feels my authentic self. And so, it just sort of like came out of me. Like that's the only way to describe it. Like I sort of put my hands on the keys and just this something just started to happen. And then that's how, but then I started taking piano lessons. Like I got crazy. I mean, I was taking 2 piano lessons a week, composing lessons, voice lessons, putting all my money into that. Cause I was like, I'm feeling all these things and I don't know anything about them. And I'm just, we'll go back to that. Sorry.
Okay, but this is like, because this is a little less like those stories where, I don't know if you've seen or read any of these where people like hit their head at a pool and they've never played music before. And then they sit down and all of a sudden they're a savant at music. You are actually working at it. You feel like you started from, because I think a lot of people in their grown ass adulthood people talk to me all the time. Like, I really like to take up piano. What should I do? And you went from not even asking that question to jumping in to composing music for a musical. So
wait, I'll tell you actually. I'll tell you how that sort of happened.
Because it's confusing me, and I know you.
Okay. So I got cast in a play, and in the play, I had to play a song on the piano. What's a song like the wedding song? You know, when people walk down the aisle. Like Canon and D, is that what it's called?
Oh, Pachelbel's Canon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I had to learn that, and I found this piano teacher through a friend. So I just asked someone, "Do you know a piano teacher in LA?" That was when everything sort of just like, I met this woman who is Lori Bromley, and she has this website called Louder, I Can't Hear You. I just want to promote that because it's about like intuitive learning. And I didn't know who she was.
Cool.
It was just the person who I happened to go to. And so I had to learn this song. So I was like, I want to feel confident in the play. I ended up dropping out of the play because I booked another job. But every time I would go to her house this was like right before COVID, I guess. I would go to her house to learn a lesson. And like, I had no interest I couldn't like look at the notes and play it. Like, I just didn't want to. And I would be like, oh, I have this in my head, this thing. And I would start, she's like, yeah, keep going. And so we would never get to the song. And she was like, she knew that something was happening. And so she really, like, the way that she taught me was specifically in a way that she knew would be best for me. So like, when I look at like notes on a scale or, you know, on sheet music, it just confuses my brain, especially the bass clef. And I don't know why. I mean, I'll go over it and over and over and over in it.
It's because you've never done it before. That's why. Yeah. It's because you didn't play piano 2 years ago. That's why it's confusing.
But it like would prevent me, because I took, you know, piano lessons when I was a kid, but like I hated it. It was horrible. And I used to stare at my piano from like, there was like a little landing like from my bedroom, and I would just stare at it and be like, And there was one song that I wrote, like just like, you know, no words or anything. And I still remember it. It's just like, da 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 da. And I realized, sorry, I'm just like literally just blah.
No, this explains how you got there. This is awesome.
Okay. So she would be like, you know, teach me very, very carefully. Like, she wouldn't teach me too many chords and scale. Like, we would do it slowly, because this would be me at the lesson. I'd be like, I'd hit something. I'd be like, oh my God, oh my God, what's that? Oh my God, like that's the best thing I ever heard in my life. And it would just be like an inversion of, a G with like something on the bottom. And it would probably be this, this chord that everyone knows. Like the first time I played like an F major 7, which I probably just learned that that's what that is. I find that there's always F major 7s in my, yeah, that feels so good to me. That's just like, and but I would think that I didn't know what I was doing. So she was like, I'm classically trained. I'm not touching that. Like that, the beauty of like being like, oh my God, of discovery. And so I feel like that's when I think of all my songs, I think the piano looks entirely different for every song. Yeah, but just like discovery, and it sort of, I just keep playing and until something sounds pretty to me. And then I just sort of like take that and collect it. And I usually just start with like a phrase or a feeling or whatever. I find like when I'm writing songs, especially if they're like, I can't figure them out, I'm always kind of like, oh, what am I in denial about here? Like, that's always the answer. It's like, what is not the, and it's always like the bridge is like, oh, the revelation of, or the truth, or just some, but it's always that. I get like obsessed with like learning things that I don't know. I really love like, I love being wrong. Like I love feeling like, oh, I got obsessed with improv, and I was like, I would be crazy. I was on a CBS sitcom. I was like the lead of this like multicam comedy. And after we were shooting, I was going to improv classes like all night long. I mean, it was like, I was a crazy person because I didn't feel like I was like just trying to get better and better and better. And anytime I sort of figured like, life is so cool. Like there's so many cool, amazing things. And I just love being able to be like, oh, discovering things about myself that I just didn't know, like, as an adult. And I feel like, I think people are just really scared, I think, to maybe fail or something. And I'm not scared of failing. I like failing. I think it's like, then,
So you must have really enjoyed your workshop.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like, there were moments and pockets where I was like just so in it, and that felt really, really good. And so those are where I'm like, oh, okay, that stays. And it was like hearing from people. That's a really hard part. It's like, and most of my friends are writers and actors, and everyone has an opinion, and they want to offer it.
And you live in that world. You live in that world. That is like the LA is the great world of moving parts, and everyone has. And I bristle so hard and try to just relax everything I can when someone says, I have some notes. I'm like, notes. I mean, like it's the worst, because as a rock musician, it's like, I don't want your notes, but it's so healthy to be able to take them. And that's part of your world.
Ooh, it's really hard.
Does that bother you as soon as someone says they have notes? Do you bristle, or do you just go, I'm taking them?
I think I probably just bristle, get really tight. Like, just like, I feel like I've always wanted to just explain myself, but it's like, I don't need to. They saw what they saw, and they had the experience that they had, and this is what they think, and they want to tell me, Andrew, my partner, is like really good at taking notes. Like I'm always like, I have been on like the line on notes calls, and I watch him be so calm and take them in. I'm like, fuck. They're crazy. Why are they saying to take that away? I'm like, what? And all I'm thinking about is like all the work that needs to be done that I'm going to have to go do. That's like, I just suddenly feel like lazy. Like I hate like second drafts and, but for this, I'm like excited to feel like, okay, how do I make this, really, really resonate? Like I want to, we want to make this amazing where people, not just like, oh, this is good for a first thing. This has been like my whole life, but I also don't want to make it like that it's this or nothing, because I would love to do more things after, and who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, because you have now decades of experience working in professional stuff, showbiz, TV shows, movies. Those are your tools.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that the inspiration part must be so strong now but it's going to have to weather now all the professional stuff, all the notes, all the repetition, and you know that already. And I think a lot of people, if we were just to jump up and even me, like when I've never done a musical, when I've started to work on ones a few times, and I could see down the road suddenly that it was going to be years.
Yeah,
like,
that's what everyone keeps saying. It's going to take years. I'm like, God, I've been waiting my whole life. I've been writing this my whole lifetime. Like, so it feels, oh God, I know it's going to be such a long process. And then like to think of how long it's going to take for my music to get out there. So it's depressing to think about that, I think.
Yeah. You're like a lot of people come to me with, like I was saying, like I want to learn to write songs, or I want to learn to play piano or something, and they're, like they're your age, my age, and they don't really know where to begin. What would you say to someone who's like, okay, let's back up from that. Acting is still, that's your day gig. That's what you get paid to do. That's correct, right?
Sure, but also like that's still hard to it's not like, I work at a bank, like I'm going there every day.
No, but that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. But there are a lot of people who work, and I'm not going to put it on a pecking order at all. But like, okay, well, there's one guy, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast in the beginning is because he's a scientist, and he approached me after. Heard you tell me this. And he was so bummed that he didn't do anything creative. And then I talked to like architects, and I know that that's like they're not creating like big pieces of art, but I have to think that it's actually very creative work. Do you see as like being an architect, you're creating a building, like you're creating space, people's lives, you're creating it. Do you think that that's more or less creative than acting?
More creative. But I remember you had explained the story once before, and I forget who you were talking to, a guy who's really interesting. And you told him the story about the scientist, and he said, and you're like, and he goes, it can be. When you said
that's Dan Levitin,
and I thought that was really interesting. That really stuck with me because I agree with him. Like, it is what you, if it's creative for you, then it's creative for you. Like you decide that. Like, so for that scientist, he wasn't being creative, in my opinion. Like, I think he needs to sort of like figure out, like being told that like, oh, that's creative. Like, sure, that's, he can go home and think that that's creative. But if he's not really going and using that information
it's
to
not
be like
fulfilling anyway. He's not expressing anything.
Yes, if you're not expressing, that's why I feel like this is my most authentic self. Like I feel like I've never been able to express Lindsay, and so I feel like the melodies and the chords and the, just the interweaving of it all feels like, oh, this is who I am, and I think I've felt frustrated my whole life. I think like in a way that even when I was acting, just being like, oh, like I see other actors who are like, really invested in like playing these roles. And I think I can get excited about it too, but I think there was just like another thing that I was supposed to do that I didn't know for a long time. And
that's the parallel I was looking for, that no matter how much you might feel like you're, and to the extent you are expressing yourself in acting, there still was this itch. So you tried to scratch the itch with writing plays.
And then it was
and now you're finding yourself scratching the itch with just writing the play, acting in it, singing the songs that you wrote. Is that enough for you?
Well, I was thinking like it would be really cool just to like be writing songs for other people. Like that's something that I would be like, I hope that I can somehow like, the thought of having to be in a room for like 10 hours and just like throwing around ideas with people who like are better at like doing stuff. Like for me, it takes me so long just to be like, like if I'm sort of like, oh, this would be better in this key, and then I'm like sort of transposing something that like, I don't even know what it is I'm playing in the first place. Okay. I feel like my brain is going to break and I feel like I need help. And so I get really frustrated, but then I feel like that's been really good because then I'm working so hard and really thinking about it and just sort of like figuring more things out. But it would feel nice to like have some help. So this one song I wrote called The Greatest, which is about my grandparents. And we gave it to someone to arrange, and it made the song just soar. And I'm just like, oh my God, like how cool. Like with just my simple chords that, like when I first played it for Linda, she's like, I hope you're not playing this in the show. I'm like, no. But like, and then when she heard it with the arrangement, she was like,
right.
Wow, and she had suggested changing things. And then I think when she heard it, it was like, oh no, that was
right.
wrong. Like, don't show a half done project to people.
Right.
Show a full, but it's like hard to do that when you're sort of workshopping something and like, yeah. And it's like, oh God, it's so scary. I'm just sorry. I have so many things in my brain. I'm just trying to like.
No, I know, but that illustrates the kind of brain that's doing, what you are doing, because you want to say everything. I do that too. I want to say everything at once. I want to think it all at once. I want to get sorted all at once, and I just climb through it. And I think that's a good way to make stuff. It's frustrating. Because you have to wait. You still have to wait before people hear your record. You have a long time before people get to hear your record.
Every time I'm stuck. It's always, what is the truth that I'm not telling? Why am I hiding it? And why
so many
do I not
songwriters
feel okay about sharing that?
So many songwriters need to hear that. Absolutely. That's because...
How do they write songs?
Well, I think you write a certain number of them early on, and that is more important to you. And then as you go along, you become like I said, TM, trademark songwriter. I am a songwriter. And that's when you need to go do a Henry Miller and announce to the world you're not a writer, you're not a novelist, you're not a songwriter, because you're a communicator. But you forget that. You get in a whole... I was talking to Chris Thiele. I think his podcast is out by now. And he was... I don't know if he was lamenting it, but he mentioned something that was kind of interesting to me, which is we work so hard. He's such an incredible, technically amazing a musician, one of the best living musicians, in my opinion. And he's worked so hard for this. The thing that he is doing that is the most impressive is not why people are listening to him. Why people are listening to him is because of the same reason that he breathes. It's just him. But getting it there, getting it to people is the thing. And that's real easy to forget as a songwriter. At first you're like, oh, I'm burying my soul. Then that goes away. And it's like, I am a songwriter and I'm writing songs. What do I have next? But what we all need to do is remember what you just said, which is, what am I not saying? It's communication. What am I feeling, but I'm not getting through in the song? I don't think songwriters naturally do that once they begin to write enough songs.
I feel like sometimes it's interesting. Someone sent me, my piano teacher sent me to an energy healer, because I was sort of like, when I had all this creative energy that was happening, and I'm like so not into that kind of thing, but it was more kind of like a therapist or whatever. And ultimately she was this person who helps people get out of like jobs that they aren't, like corporate world, and so they can get into like a more creative field, and they're struggling with that. And so she sort of helps people transition. It was a coincidence that I went to her. And then it wasn't until after like these 12 sessions with her, I was like, oh my God, even though I'm an actor, which is like technically a creative field, there was still something else that I wasn't tapping into and accessing. And I realized, wow, okay, you can be in what everyone thinks to be a very creative space and not really feel like you're being your most creative. And I thought that was like that was like a huge revelation for me. I'm like, just because like people think it's cool that I'm an actor doesn't mean I'm necessarily really expressing myself.
Do you think, do you imagine that this musical and album for you is a one and done thing where you see yourself like going off now to learn to be an astronaut or something? Like,
no, I feel like
or do you think this is a big part?
No, this is a huge where I feel like I'm like upset that took me this long in life. Like I used to watch people like in amazement, just like doing these things. And I'd be like, oh, wow. Sometimes no one tells you that you can do something. And I encourage people who are listening that no one's going to fucking tell you. No one's going to tell you.
Right.
And so you have to like really like dig deep and think like what you might want. And like, I feel like I heard this on the Herbie Hancock masterclass, which really stuck with me, was like, the most important thing is when you see a piano and a child sees a piano to just go over it and start pressing the keys. Like no one told me to just do that. Like I never thought of like the idea that I could go to the piano and create a song. It never occurred to me that I could do that. But what did occur to me was that I have to learn what this piano teacher is teaching me, and that's what I'm supposed to do. And why are the other things not taught that we can also, like, isn't the most important thing to express yourself rather than learning scales? Like, who cares? And so maybe that comes second. I think first needs to be like, explore that beautiful thing that looks like furniture that like, oh, it's like furniture that sings, right? Like it's just like sitting in there and it's just like this big, beautiful, intimidating thing. And just go and just fucking press down those keys. Like who cares? Like you could be creating something new. Yeah. So that's that's how I feel.
No, but I think you're onto a couple of really, to me, they're big things. And of course I'm not a teacher, educator or anything, but that hasn't stopped me from putting my 2 cents in this. One, there is a child development moment that I understand to be consistent with all people, which is it's time for like an infant to put their hands in the mashed potatoes. Like you encourage a baby to like be really tactile and make a mess for a while. Like we're not eating the mashed potatoes all the time. You just put your hands in them, you throw them, do this, that. Kids are going to do that because they're learning. I think for the piano, that's something that we ought to encourage in anyone learning is that mashing of the keys, like mashed potatoes that you're talking about. The other thing is that when we learn, and I've said this many times, but when we learn art, visual art in class as a kid, right out of the gate, you're doing an original piece. Right out of the gate, they're like, paint a house or paint something you want to. You're actually expressing yourself. The first thing you do in music, you copy someone else. You copy someone else, or you do a scale, and all those things are amazing, and you have to do them. But no one ever says this is how you're going to express yourself. This is your tool to make people understand what you're feeling. I don't see that happening in average education.
And it so should that it should be like go to the thing and create something and maybe remember it or I'm thinking about I make these watercolor paintings that you can see them behind me.
Getting ready to ask you about that, and I wanted you to pick up one of them and bring it up to the camera for anyone who's watching this. If you could grab one of them, that would be wicked.
Let's see if I can.
For those of you back home, Lindsey Kraft is grabbing an original painting. That's right, an original painting that she made herself. Yeah.
It doesn't look that
Move it around a little bit to the side so that the glare. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I can see that. That's a street scene.
Yeah, it's New York.
When did you do that?
I did that like about a year ago, maybe.
So you've been painting your whole life?
No.
Okay. No. Another podcast coming up. So you've also learned to paint.
No, that was just like me expressing myself. Like just like, I thought these watercolor pencils were really neat. Like I felt like I was like, oh, that's like that makes a lot of sense to me. Like sort of like outlining things and then just like smudging and just messing it up. And I'm really kind of an idiot with like dimensions. And then I realized that actually it's really cool for the dimensions to be off. And then that looks really neat. And that was sort of like a part of it. And then people like wanted to buy them. So I put them, but I have a real problem with like selling, like thinking that anything that I do is worth any kind of money or anything. And so I'm trying to, that one I really like too. Can you see that one? Not that well, maybe a little bit. But yeah, just like valuing myself, just like regular nonsense.
Yeah.
Um,
let's
yeah.
get some questions from the Peanut Gallery, and we can both answer them. I'll answer them, and you can answer them the right way.
Okay.
Hi, Ben and Lindsay. My question is, as the entertainment industry evolves and reconciles, is there anything that existed prior to universal technology use and social media that you would like to retain or that you consider important going forward?
I don't know what universal technology use is. Do you know what that is, Lindsay?
Mm-mm. I'm just thinking about, maybe it's like, what do we feel like is useful that for us that doesn't involve technology, I guess, like our internet. Is that what it means?
Yeah, and the word reconcile I was stuck on too. I mean, that makes it an interesting question. Here's where my mind goes on that though, is in my career of 30 years, and then prior to that being a person for longer, I've seen technology in music change a lot. And I think that people have been most keen to talk about the digital revolution and what it means for distribution. Like, what does this do for music that now everyone can put it up on the internet? And what I would say, my observation, half a century observation, is that nothing changes. You have an idea, you make the idea, you distribute the idea, and people consume it. That's it. If you're making a lemonade and you're a kid, you make lemonade and you put the stand up, it's the same thing. You have to create something. Your distribution is very limited. Your product's very limited. Your creation's limited, but it's the same thing. Record labels might have sort of gone away, but the function that they what they did was it's still there. It still exists. You have to pay for a recording. People who know how to record have to record it, and you put it out. Now, if you do it all in your bedroom, that's fine, but that doesn't change the dynamics. You still make it. So I would say, like, that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Whoever's rock quote that was, it is, I think, relevant because you make music because you feel it, and like Lynn says, you want to express it. And that's it. None of the rest of that shit matters. However, on the flip side of it, I think every major shift in style over my lifetime has been the result of a change of technology. So the way you dress it up, the process by which you put it down, the things you were inspired by, if suddenly you can, like, I was watching this Peter Gabriel video from the early 80s, and he's really young. He's got this tucked in a plaid shirt, and he looks like a complete nerd, and he's going out into a junkyard with a big, actually it's a sledgehammer, and he's breaking things while a guy records it. So he can use this new technology called sampling. It didn't change his songs. His songs were about all the things that they'd always been about. They had the same chords. It's just that suddenly he was way into this new technology, and it inspired him, and it changed the sound of it completely. So the style of the 80s changed so much with technology. But if you listen to the songs, they have choruses, they've got bridges, they've got singers, they're in keys, all the same stuff. So that's a really long way of saying that please don't pay attention and get bogged down on all the way the industry has changed, the way distribution has changed, the way that the mediums have changed. You have to write a real song, or you have to do something real and expressive, but totally respect how much you're going to look back at what I call your naked baby photos and hear yourself in your naive state using technology of that year, using the haircut of that year. That could be embarrassing if you're like sporting a mullet and you have to see that years from now. That wasn't all that articulate, but I was also going from like some pretty interesting wording. So hopefully we both got there. What do you make of that, Kraft?
Oh, all I was thinking about was like, this is like separate, but I was wondering if people change. That was wherever my brain went. I always wonder if like people can change. And so, but I think the bottom line of what you said, what I connected to besides that part about people changing, because I always think about that, like, can people actually change? But, because I think you said that in the beginning, right? It's something about things changing. I've gotten
I think it's like, I don't know who it is. It's some rock group. The more things change, the more they stay the same, or something like that.
Yeah, someone like that. But I think the bottom line is like, just create honest work. And just continue to do that. And that's all that matters. Like all the other people always ask like, oh, how do you get into the, like asking like certain questions about like, should I do this or should I, like kind of technical things about acting. And I'm like, oh, or just be yourself and be a good actor, like work hard at the material and show up. As opposed to like all the other things that like bog people down. And it's like, just focus on the work, go in to do the job, not get the job.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, here's something that I wanted to ask that this parlays into the multidisciplinary thing that you do now, like singing, writing, acting, painting.
This sounds so stupid. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's true. These are things that you do all the time now. When it comes to the big ones, acting now, I think in songwriting, I'm gonna call you an actor / songwriter.
Okay, cool. I like that. I'll take it.
What are they teaching each other? Like, which one's the teacher and which one is the student?
Oh, that's such a great question. This is going to be like this is the first time I've ever thought about this. I think I always want to, I think in both forms, I always want to be truthful. I feel like that's always what I talk about, right? I mean, like, when I'm in a scene, I'm like, okay, really listen to what that person is saying to me and really tell the person what I'm trying to say and really tell them, like my acting teacher will say to me, really fucking tell me, Lindsay. And I'm like, oh yeah. And every time I'm reminded of that, I'm like, oh, it's 1,000 times better, because sometimes we just sort of get caught in like the loop of like getting something done or like, just, figuring it out for just to get it done. Right. And then sort of, I think that teaches me, like what I've learned as an actor. I think how I approach like all my songs is through like a storytelling way. Right. Like I'm never trying to write like a pop song, because I don't even know what that is. And I don't think I even like that. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of the things mean. I sort of just like I did. So I am a member of Ben Folds Patreon. And the first time I ever knew about songwriting or like was thinking about it was you do these amazing songwriting classes. People send in their songs. I never for 1 second was like, I'm going to send in my song. Like,
I was going to say, did you send one in?
No, I never sent one in because I was mortified. That was probably, I don't know when this was, like 2 years ago or whatever. Yeah. Maybe I don't remember anymore. What is time? But I was like listening, people sent in songs and some of them were great and some of them were okay. And I would be like, and I would learn more from the okay ones.
Yeah, me
because
too.
I would sort of be like, oh, like, I feel like what I'm doing is sort of like this, but I would be like, oh, he's saying, okay, a form. So you have a verse, then maybe a chorus. Then like, it was like the first time I ever even heard that.
That's cool.
Didn't know what that was. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, like that I didn't know what the structure was.
When you see something that's not working, when you hear a song that's not working, you do say, spit it out. And so often there's some really clever bit. There's like a chorus, it's a play on words or something like that. And you're like, okay, I get it. Spit it out. What are you trying to say?
Totally.
And so that's what, and in that way, acting has been your songwriting teacher or vice versa?
I don't know. I have to think about that more. I'm not sure. But I was thinking about when I go, what'd you say?
They probably just teach each other then.
Yeah, I think so. But like when I'm out for a run or something and a song comes on and I'll be like, this song is like amazing, a song that I know. And I'll have to look at how many seconds has it been. And sometimes I'm like, it's been 20 seconds and this song is fucking amazing. And how did they do that? Like, wow, they got right to it, right to the amazingness.
Yeah.
And I already know it's an amazing song. Like, and so that amazes me. I'm like, oh, my songs have to sort of like, you want to feel that right away. Like I'm like, sometimes I'll like just play these, like I've played all like number kind of games all the time in my brain. I'm like, oh, if it's, if it's like minute 5, like, I know this sounds so, I'm a crazy person also, but like, if I'm like, I'll keep running until it hits like a minute exactly, but I'll be like, I can't believe they put that into a minute. How'd they do that? Like they've just put gold in 1 minute.
I remember the talking to guys in Cheap Trick, played a show with them and got to play piano with them for kids. That was a huge rock band. They still are, but in the 70s they were killing it. And this wasn't in the 70s. I was a kid then, but I got to play with them. And the drummer, I think, said something like, "Get to the chorus, don't bore us," or "Don't bore us, get us to the chorus."
Oh yeah.
And apparently that's something that people used to say all the time. And I like that. And I also like, I heard once someone said, the second verse, like the first, a little louder, a little worse.
Okay.
It's funny. Yeah. I don't know.
Some of my songs, like, I don't even have like choruses. Like I never like a chorus. I'm just like, oh,
right.
Gross. I don't know. I'm just like,
you don't want some, yeah.
I love a bridge is like my favorite thing in the world. And I was in a musical improv class and I was like, everyone always knew that Lindsay was going to do the bridge, I guess I sort of knew. Cool. That was sort of what taught me form a little bit actually too. But I still didn't understand, like, to start with a verse. I was like, start with, how do you even know? It's, I wish I could have recorded myself, like figuring this all out and being like I would find myself in these musical improv. I don't know if people know what that is, but it's like improv, but it's like there's a piano player and you're sort of doing scenes that go into songs. And I would find myself being like in the middle of the scene being like, oh, that was a really good melody. I want to continue that and be like, it would be so selfish, but I would be like not wanting to collaborate. And I feel like it was because I still had so much to say on my own and I didn't understand that. And so I would be like, oh, that melody was so good. And just being like, why are we not going down that path? Like, why is not everybody realizing how good that melody was?
I think that to back up, focus on something that you were just saying about choruses. I mean, I may be wrong. I think you probably do like choruses, but I think you don't like choruses that are overtly salesman-like choruses. Like you don't like a bumper sticker maybe, or you don't like a chorus that screams it's a chorus. But the function of a chorus you do like. Because
you're probably
the songs I've heard of yours, they have choruses, but they're not slutty choruses, They're not choruses that, and I don't like those either. Like, that's why I think part of the reason I tag so many of my songs with people's names. I didn't really want a bumper sticker as a chorus. I wanted it to be, something else, but you need the chorus.
I feel like I have so many names in all my songs. I think almost every single one of my songs or places. Like that's what inspires me. Like, I guess people and places are.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I found when I started trying to, I didn't really want to do a jukebox musical, but I started kind of working on one for a while, maybe about 10 years ago. And the producers and writers really liked Rockin' the Suburbs. And we worked for like 2 or 3 days, note cards and working stuff out. And then we just couldn't find a way to deal with 10,000 names.
No,
there were too many names. It was like, you can't have like 17 characters in this show. You know that.
That was a huge problem in my show. Well, actually, there was a song called "Hey Bets," but I think now it's "Hey Bitch."
Is it?
And I can get it. Yeah, it's "Hey," but and if people have a problem with it, I don't know what to tell them. Sorry. That's just what it is. But I think it makes it so much better. It's like it's sort of like awoke in the song. It was like it didn't need to be, because I was like, I don't want my name to be Bets in the show. Like I'm not doing that. Wait, there was something.
You're singing to yourself.
Yeah, singing to myself.
Sing to yourself. That's cool.
Well, we'll see if I don't know. There's all these guys in the show, but at one point I wanted them to be all played by women, but I'm not like trying to make a point about that, but I just thought it would be interesting if it were that. And so I don't know.
Every week I do something called the New Week's Resolution.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yes, and I want you to give me, I know you don't have much time, but I want you to give me and the audience an exercise. It's a creative exercise that we're supposed to do for this week that is achievable.
Well, I'll have two, and I'll say them really quickly. Number one is give someone a break. So step outside of yourself, and someone who needs some sort of help in creatively or a connection to something, or if you can give like an hour of your time to someone who wants you to read their essay or help them with a song. And because I find that when I help people, I get more creatively activated.
That's in my top 5. I love that. That's one of the best I've heard. Okay, so give people some help, an ear, an eye, a break. Who are their creations or their creativity.
Who are maybe like a little less fortunate than you or whatever. There's always someone less fortunate, and like just take your time to do that. Yeah. Yeah,
to help others creatively.
Mm-hmm. And number 2, this is just one that I think could be really fun for. Think about a musician that you. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
I was going to say, do you achieve that by going through your contacts and going, this person could. How are we going to do that next week?
I was thinking like, if you're having to think about it, then that's your job. Actually, that's the job. Is like, okay, then I should have more. I should have easier access to think about someone who I might need to help, because it's important to do that. I think in life.
I dig it.
Do you know what I mean? Is that obnoxious to say?
Totally.
I just think
it's not obnoxious. It's so easy. And this is actually, you're onto something that I had a problem with some of the actor friends I had in LA for not doing enough free shit. Like musicians go out and play shows, or you play on people's albums and stuff. And all the actors I knew were all tied up in auditions all the time. And they weren't doing as much as I thought that they should be doing, which is actually good for you.
Yes. Or just like, like I feel like I had a really hard time with like nobody helping me ever in my career. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really sensitive to that, because I like to just like connect someone to an agent that might not have the ability to do that. And I feel like they get so much out of it. I get so much out of it. Everyone wins. So it's like, don't think about yourself all the time. Think about other people and how to help them to succeed in this business. That's really fucking hard.
Gotcha. Love it.
Yeah.
And and number 2?
This is just like silly. So this is how I sort of like write songs sometimes, or I've done it once. But think about an artist that you love, that you don't know that well, but you're like, I want to listen to more of their music. Go through their catalog, pick a song that you don't know, that you've never heard. You're like, I don't know what that song is.
Okay.
Get the chords for that song, and don't look at the melody line. If you're a really great musician, like this might not be the best for you, but like just look at the chords, say the words that are there, and just sort of see what melody you come up with, like with those chords. And then go into your phone and go to your last text message conversation and plug the conversation into the words of the song, and see what happens. And see, then you've like created a song, and you have these chords, and like no one's gonna ever know what song it was, and you don't even know what the song sounds like.
I had an exercise. I just did a songwriting retreat thing. It was all virtual online, and one of the exercises, I gave them 45 minutes to write a short story, beginning, middle, and end. It had to make sense. And in fact, instead of showing us, instead of don't tell us, show us, do the opposite. Tell everything. Be so descriptive, so literal. Tell the story once upon a time from beginning to the end. Mm-hmm. Then I asked them to find all of the accidental metaphors, like if something was heavy, like he lifted a heavy object, just take that in and of itself and list all those metaphors out. By the time we got through this process, you had a song, but they were using actual metaphors that you would use. And the whole reason for me was, one, people don't think about telling the story. And second, they use bullshit metaphors, which are just there to be cool, instead of like ones that actually come from nature that you use all the time. Anyway,
that's cool.
That was just, it was as complicated as the one you just said. That's how I felt.
Oh, do you think it was complicated? Do you think it's complicated?
Yeah, it was complicated.
I feel like, yeah, maybe. But so the first one. So then let people do the first one.
Because it was like, find an artist that you don't really know, well, but you don't know them. But then you look and find a song that you don't know by then, get the chords, play the chords, then go to your text message. Am I getting it right?
You got it. You got it all right. You got it all right.
Yeah.
And
okay, well, it's not too complicated for me, but
You just wrote a song and it's like I just meant like find a song that you don't know. That's all. Yeah. That's all you should find. Find a song you don't know. Look at the chords. Make up a melody based on those.
You know what I used to do when I was a kid? I would get an album at the yard sale that had lyrics in it. I would write a song to the lyrics, and then I would listen to the real song after I'd written the song to it.
That's fun. That's like the opposite of this, kind of, right?
Yeah.
I love that. That's cool. But I feel like got him. There,
I was going to try to wrap it up again. I have to hop on a plane. This is fun, though. We could do this for like 2 hours, but
that's fun.
It's really inspiring for me to see and hear what you've been doing. And I want people to pay attention to this, but take the inspired part out of it, not the daunting part. Not like, how the hell am I going to learn to play piano and write songs out of nowhere? And of course, she's a professional actor and she can do this. But actually look at it for yourself. Like, you can do it.
Yeah, unpack all of the layers of yourself and just try to extract them, because no one's going to tell you. No one's going to tell you. So I'm telling you, just check it out. See,
just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Like Nike said.
Yeah.
All right. Well, really good to talk to you. Good luck.
I
can't wait to see one of these workshops. I want to see it.
Oh gosh. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, if you're enjoying listening to Lightning Bugs, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot. Thank you so much for watching Lightning Bugs on YouTube. Check out more episodes and subscribe if you have not already. You can also listen to Lightning Bugs wherever podcasts may be found.